Thank you for coming out. My name is Valina Dixon, and I will serve as one of your hosts for the meeting this evening. I'm with the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority. On behalf of our mayor and the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, we certainly appreciate this opportunity to come together with you, our community. At this time, we're going to have brief greetings from the president of the Creighton Court community and the tenant council, Ms. Marilyn Olds, and then I'll come back with you with a few more brief comments. Ms. Olds?
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening, but God spoke to my heart and said we need a word of prayer. So I'm going to ask Reverend Walker to come forward at this time to open us in prayer. As it is our tradition in Creighton, we start with prayer, we end with prayer. So my heart is led to ask her to do the prayer this evening. So she will come forward and will give us what we so stand in desperate need of. A closer walk and talk to God. Thank you, Reverend.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, Creator, Redeemer, lover of our souls, we ask now that as we gather to attend to the business that you have given to our hearts and hands to do, that you would bless our conversations, give us what we stand in need of, that we might be good listeners, good hearers, and good doers of the things that you bring forth by your Spirit. We trust now, O God, that you hear us and you have answered our prayers. Therefore, we look forward to the furtherance of your kingdom in the earth, particularly in Creighton Court, and we look forward to what you will do in each of our lives. And we give you thanks even now. I do pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you both. Tonight we're here to take another important step in defining the future of our East End communities. We say another step because many of you are aware and were involved in our meetings held, which began in the summer of 2010. And then just a few weeks ago, August 14th, we were together at Armstrong High School. A few months ago, our RHA issued a request for qualifications for a master developer for the Eastview, Wickham, Creighton, 9 Mile Road areas to assist us with this really comprehensive and involved planning process, and you'll hear more about that later. So during that August meeting, how many of you were at the August 14th meeting? Great. Now during that meeting, we announced we would hold additional community meetings in Creighton and in the Wickham community and the East End of Richmond. And we are committed to community dialogue and involvement. So tonight is just the first of many meetings we will hold to involve our communities. Before I bring up our speakers, just to go over a few housekeeping items for tonight's meeting. This is a dialogue, a conversation, and so we have cards that we have passed out. When you came in, you have a card, so during the meeting, if you have a question or a comment, we'll be collecting those cards and sharing them with you throughout the meeting. And we will also be sure to follow up and post notes and information from tonight's meeting. As you see, we're recording tonight's meeting, so it will be available on the city's information channel. So we are very, very committed to keeping everyone engaged in this process. You all should have received an agenda for this evening, and so we are at that point where we are very pleased to introduce to you our speakers for the evening. First, we have our very own Mayor Dwight Jones, and I have the honor of introducing him to you this evening. Mayor Jones has been working to set the city of Richmond on a path of growth and prosperity. During his first term in office, he's been moving the city forward with many major projects. The city is currently underway with building 4 new schools, and just recently you heard something very exciting about those Redskins. I don't know what all the excitement is about the Redskins, but he was very proud to lead the city in that announcement. All of these will help our city prosper and contribute to our economic success. Mayor Jones has also shared a vision for the transformation of public housing, the topic he is here today to speak to you about. This is a mayor who wants all of us to move forward, no matter what part of town we may be from. So please welcome Mayor Dwight Jones.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a delight to be with you again. We were with you a few months ago, and it's good to be back here again tonight. Glad to be with Adrienne Goolsby, there she is, our CEO for the Housing Authority, and good to be with you again tonight. I was here on Sunday in the community and had a wonderful time with the youngsters, sharing in a kind of a festive atmosphere, but tonight we have some business that we really want to take care of. I have spent the last 3.5 years, as long as I've been mayor, working to transform and to bring a better future for Richmond and for Richmonders. It is my sincere desire that we want a better way of life for all of the people who live in the city of Richmond. And I think that we have been successful in making plans and shaping a vision, even in the midst of an economic downturn. And so what I want to do is position Richmond for its opportunity to be a Tier 1 city. We want to provide a process for transformational growth, not just in some areas of the city, but in all areas of the city. And so we're here tonight to talk about a vision for public housing in the city of Richmond. And when I think of housing, when I think of what housing should be, I go back to my roots. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia, and on the street where I lived, it's a far cry from the streets where we live today. On my street, I grew up in a neighborhood where there were all kinds of people. There were people from every walk of life. There was a doctor, there were bus drivers, there were teachers, there were janitors. There was no monolith. There was not just one kind of person, but there were many different people. And the way I know that there were people of different incomes because we were poor is that every Halloween we would go to one house specifically because this man gave out whole Hershey bars, and Hershey bars with almonds. And we knew that this guy had to have money if he was giving out Hershey bars when other people were just throwing some acorns in the bag. And so we knew that he was well-heeled, that he had a prosperous life, but that gave us the opportunity to see him and to allow him to model success before us. What is important is not what people did for a living, however, but what is important is that we have a mix of incomes, a mix of stories, a mix of experiences. I think that is what makes great neighborhoods. That's the type of mix that makes a truly vibrant neighborhood, a neighborhood that we can all be proud of. I want neighborhoods where there are people who come from all walks of life. And so tonight I want to give you a picture of where we are today and what we would like to begin moving toward. And I want to just give you a picture of the public housing stock that's in our city today. And as we put that up on the screen, I believe, we see the concentration of public housing in the city of Richmond. It seems that if you look at these yellow highlighted areas on this map, it will suggest to you that all of the public housing is in one concentrated area. When we come across the Martin Luther King Bridge, we come into a whole new reality. And these images show the locations. And what's apparent is that we have a real concentration of public housing units primarily in one area of the city. And the effect of concentrating poverty such as this leads to economic isolation. It leads to neighborhoods that are in decline, and it also leads to neighborhoods where poverty becomes entrenched. We want to start off with the basic understanding of what we agree on. And what we agree on and what we know is that good and decent people live in all of these communities. When I was here on Saturday, it was reinforced that good and decent people live in Creighton. As I played with the children and as I talked with them, signed autographs, took pictures, I know that that is a fact. And the thing that we also should be able to agree on is that we don't have to sit back and allow things to continue the way that they are today. And so that's what we're here tonight to discuss. We're here tonight to discuss what things can become. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to visit several cities where the public housing stock has been looked at through a different lens. We had the opportunity to go to the city of Atlanta, and we also had the opportunity to go to Norfolk, Virginia. And there we were able to see some tangible examples of transformed communities that were viable communities and sustainable communities. And behind me, I believe, is a picture. Is this Atlanta or Norfolk? This is Atlanta. This is Atlanta, where many of the public housing communities were transformed into mixed income communities such as this. And that was what the public housing community called Broad Creek in Norfolk looked like before. This is what it looks like now. And so it's important for you, a picture's worth 1,000 words. When you see pictures like that, you are able to assess where we are, but you're also able to catch a vision of where we can be. And so I want to just say tonight that this kind of change is doable. This kind of change is possible. We're going to need ingenuity. We're going to need innovation. We're going to need a common understanding of the road we're going to travel, and hopefully we're going to travel this road together. We're going to need a strong housing authority, and we're going to need the support of the business community to get this done. We have begun the work with our East End Transformation Initiative, and we are establishing model blocks, and we have a 9-mile road redevelopment plan underway. Also this year in my budget, I put money in the budget this year for pre-development funds for these mixed income communities. We also have an opportunity to catch a vision of where we're going with the Dove Court redevelopment, and that redevelopment is on the way. Even as we speak, Dove Court is being revitalized, and it is being erected even as we speak. And one of the great features about the Dove Court piece is that we're also looking to have a new school in that area as well. And you're seeing some flashes on the screen of what Dove is going to be like. The money we're investing will also leverage federal, state, and other investment in these communities. And this is going to be real sustainable change. Now, I guess the most important thing I can say tonight is that we cannot move forward without having the cooperation and without being on the same page with stakeholders. And you will say, Mr. Mayor, who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are the people who are in this room. Cynthia Newbill, our city council person, Ms. Goolsby from the Housing Authority, me as the mayor, my staff. All of us are stakeholders. And as we move forward, we do want to move forward singing from the same sheet of music, singing from the same page. We need to hear from you. We want you to be involved. This is my second meeting. I promise not to allow this process to move forward without my personal involvement, because I think that there's going to have to be a certain element of trust on everybody's part, that nobody is misleading anyone else. And so I am making it a priority to try as best I can to be at as many of these meetings as I possibly can. That's why I was at Armstrong, and that's why I'm here tonight. We heard many of the concerns from the community voice when we were at Armstrong. Many of you were at the Armstrong meeting. and you're here again tonight, and we don't want to stifle your voices. We want to hear your voices, we want to hear your concerns, and we want to hear your complaints. As I mentioned, not complaints, your suggestions. And if they are complaints, we'll hear that too. But I want you to know that we understand that some of the things that are on your mind are things like one-on-one replacement. We know that those are questions that are on your mind. We know that resident relocation are questions that are on your mind. And the process for returning to the community once it is transformed. We know that those are questions that need to be answered. We know that those are deep concerns, and we know that change in many instances is scary. But that's why we're here. We're here today to talk about it and to find the answers to the questions. Now, we don't have all of the answers tonight, but what we do promise is that we're going to work together so that we can come to a conclusion that is meaningful to all of us and that will lead us to transformed communities in the East End of Richmond. So I thank you for coming out tonight and taking your valuable time to share in this meeting. And I look forward to our opportunity to dialogue. I'm going to stay as long as I possibly can. And with that, I'm going to ask you to welcome Adrienne Goolsby, the CEO of the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and she's going to follow me with what she has to say. Come on, let's.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your time. I want to, first of all, welcome all of the community members who are here today. I want to welcome our Board of Commissioners who are here, who are supportive in this effort. I want to thank the mayor's staff for being here because truly this is a partnership and we can't do it alone. I also want to thank our councilwoman, Ms. Newbill, for being here because you play a vital role in making sure that we meet the sentiments of redevelopment. And of course, I want to thank the tenant council who are so very active in this community, who are out there pounding the pavement each day, talking about how we can revitalize our communities. And I've been with many of you all walking up and down the 9 Mile Road, giving out handouts and flyers about this community meeting. And lastly but not least, you need some people in the background who do the work. So thank you, RRHA staff, who are here, who are supporting this initiative. And I want all the residents to know that this is something that's exciting. This is something that we're going to do. One of the things that I said when I first got here, and it's now 6 months, so I can't say too much, the honeymoon's over. But when people say, what did you come to do? I came to build some stuff. I came to build some stuff, and building things isn't just bricks and mortar. We're talking about changing lives. We're talking about revitalizing communities. We're talking about giving hope to the children who are here in the communities and making sure that families are vibrant and that families are moving forward towards self-sufficiency. So we're gonna do some stuff, and believe me, that's kind of like my testament. I want to also say in thanks that the August 14th meeting at Armstrong was a successful one. We heard you, we understood your questions. Do we have all of the answers? Absolutely not. Do we have all the questions? Absolutely not. But we want to make sure that you understand that we're starting this dialogue. The dialogue not only with you, but with the community at large to figure out how we're going to revitalize the East End. Meetings like today are important. They're important because you get to meet us one-on-one. You understand the support that you have in revitalizing this community, but they're also important because I call them listening sessions. It's to reassure you as to what the process is that's taking place today. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of that right now. As stated before, a request for proposal was submitted for a master developer for this entire area. And so we have received several proposals in reference to selecting a master developer, and we're in that process right now. So what does that mean? Nothing's begun. Nothing has been planned yet in reference to this particular community. I know that charrettes have been done. I know that community planning has taken place over a number of years, but all of that being integrated into one plan has not taken place as of yet. And once we select a master developer from a housing perspective, we will utilize that vehicle as a catalyst to do so. So that is where we are today. We're going to be kicking off the review team going forward in the next couple of weeks. And that review team is comprised of community members, so people who are representatives of the tenant council. So it's not just people who are RRHA employees, but we also have people who are representatives of the community at large, people who have been suggested by the council members for this district, as well as individuals who work within the city planning and economic and development departments who are here on the ground with you on a consistent basis thinking about redevelopment for this area. So we are all working in concert to develop and to select a very cohesive team that represents every aspect of this community. And that's where we are right now. Does that mean that we can't still have these listening sessions while they're going through the rigorous and, believe me, prolonged procurement process? Because we're federally regulated, we got a whole bunch of different types of regulations that we have to adhere to. No, what that means is that we're going to continue having these meetings. We're going to continue this dialogue. We have Whitcomb coming up in November. We're going to start off in the new year talking to you about what kind of things we're doing, what type of selections have been made, and we're going to continue this dialogue throughout the entire process. So this isn't the last meeting here at Creighton. This won't be the first meeting. We're going to have several meetings. You're going to get tired of seeing me. And probably some of you already have been tired because you see me walking the community, and I've spoken to a number of you. But tell your friends, tell your people who live here that we need them to be involved. We need to understand what your thoughts are and what your ideas are. So since we have just a bit of time, and I know we want to open it for questions, I'm just going to close right there. And I want to let you all know that we are moving down the path towards revitalization. As the mayor showed you pictures of before and after, I heard the oohs and the ahs. I lived it. I was in Chicago for 11 years. We transformed 25,000 units of public housing. And it wasn't just thinking about housing, bricks and mortar. We changed lives. We changed entire communities. I lived in one of those communities. So I believe in the process. I believe that it can work. But it can only work here in Chicago, Robert Taylor. I live like 2 blocks down from there. But we can only do this together. This is a partnership. This is not RRHA doing it alone. This is not the city of Richmond doing it alone. This is not the tenant council and the RTO doing it alone. This is all of us working in concert and together in order to make this a successful venture and to revitalize this community as you see it. Not as we see it, but as you see it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you all coming out, and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Belina.
Thank you, Ms. Goolsby and Mr. Mayor. As both said, this is an evening for dialogue. This is the time now where we will take your questions. We had the cards distributed, Mr. Dunlap, is that right? You have cards available to you. We also have a microphone in the audience. Mr. Stephen, is the microphone on? Mr. Atkins, is the microphone on in the audience? Okay. And so now is the time for us to receive your questions. Mr. Mayor, as well as Ms. Goolsby, will participate in this. And let's see, Mr. Stuckey is collecting cards. We'll get them up here to the front. And while we're waiting on cards, if there's anyone that wants to come to the microphone and ask a question this evening of us as well. We also shared with you a handout. We do want you to make sure that you take this with you and refer to this. This is good background information that you can keep with you. On the front, we just give an overview of the various components of this very involved process that Ms. Goolsby talked about. And then if you turn over, you see we have a few key dates for you as well, or the sequence, what will happen next. We know that's very important that you have that information so you can plan your time and see how you want to be involved in upcoming meetings. So do we have any questions this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Shamir Miles, and I'm a part of the Engage Enrichment Group. I know some people may not know what that is, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but we've been doing research in this neighborhood, and we were trying to figure out what are the strengths, the assets, and where the needs for the community members are. And we've uncovered like some questionable development practices that occurred like in the 50s with the strategic planning of the mass concentration of the housing developments, the cemetery, the graveyard, the jail. And I was just wondering, how is this planning going to be different? Is it going to be a lot more of the community people at the table, just so we don't see this reoccur? Because I'm seeing the same kind of housing, it just looks a lot more different. It's beautiful, but it's basically, it looks still the same. And if we don't change the people's mentality, when you put them back into that, we're going to have a repeat of what we already have going on now. So my question is, are we going to have a lot more of the community people at the table to say what this neighborhood needs, how we see it as a thriving neighborhood, versus people coming in and saying, this is what we see as a vision for a thriving neighborhood?
Stay right there, and we'll let Mr. Mayor or Ms. Goolsby respond.
You're welcome, Ms. Hurd.
Hi. Hi. So, yes, the community will be involved in the process. What typically happens when you go through the master developer selection? The master developer, along with the working group, which the working group is comprised of people from the community, residents, from public housing, as well as folks from the city of Richmond, from RRHA, and other representatives from the city council. That group, along with other community input, and there'll be several opportunities where you can have community input as to what that vision should be. So this is not going to be one of those things where it's in a vacuum and this is what we think it should look like. And I know from a physical standpoint, when you look at the pictures, it shows different row homes and things of that nature, but that is a mixture of various different income, as well as different types of folks who have different types of careers and who are doing different things in the community. So it's not where you're going to have the consolidation of poverty once again, but we're thinking about how do you integrate various aspects of that from an economic engine. And so it's not, the whole idea is that you don't have a repeat of what happened in the 50s.
We definitely don't want to see a repeat.
And it's important that you go back 50 years
Right.
and recognize that there was an intentional design
It was.
to have people without resources in one place.
Right.
But also recognize that that agenda was the agenda of a different generation,
Right.
of a different administration, people who sought to say if we don't have to see it, then it's not there.
Yeah, they pretty much cut us off of the city grid.
Exactly.
Right.
But what we are saying is that we want to change all of that. We want to change that paradigm. We want to be transformational, and we want to include you. That's why we're here tonight. I'm sure 50 years ago when that decision was made, they didn't bring poor people together or to ask their opinion. We're here tonight to say, let's do this thing together. Let's make it better. Let's find something that really we can all be proud of and want to be a part of, and a place that all of us will want to live.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you
all
for your
in the
question.
future. I think this is part B to her question. Did I understand you to say that the review team will be selecting the master builder?
The master developer.
The
That
master
doesn't,
developer.
the master developer,
Okay.
it could be one or it could be more than one.
So
It
that
doesn't-
same team will also be responsible for building or implementing something around the infrastructure? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it actually gets separated. The master developer is selected, and then you have a working group. So elements of that review team, along with some advisory team members, will create the working group, and then From that perspective, they start the entire development process, which means not moving and demolishing. What it means is having community meetings and community forums and taking what we've already learned and also listening and saying, here are some options. This is what we've heard, this is what we reviewed, and bring it back to this forum so that people have say-so and have input.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else before I come and ask these questions?
I don't have I do have a lot of questions for the future, but I just want my residents to know this is the opportunity for you guys to come out and ask the hard questions. I know you asked me a lot of questions. These are the folks up front that can answer your questions. I would have liked to see a better turnout, but what is going to happen, Creighton's going to have his own meeting, and I know the house is going to be packed. We couldn't get everybody in here, but I'm going to call for a meeting on next month, and we're going to talk about the things. I wish you guys would come up today and speak what you really feel, because I have a lot of fear and a lot of misunderstanding of what's going to happen and what's going on. And like I shared with the mayor and some other folks, I'm 50-50 at this point. I want to see a better living condition for us. I don't like the children that we're producing. I don't like what I see on the streets, and I don't want us to keep catering to this generation after generation. But, there's always a but. I'm concerned about the transition. Who's going to come back and who's not? And I'm really concerned about those who won't be coming back. Okay, they're going to do, if they do one for one, as I shared with Vanine, and I thank you guys for all what you give me to work with. The placements don't have to be all on this slide, which I don't want them to be on this slide. It won't be a mixed community if we put all this back together, okay? But if this process is to go through, I want you to understand what's going to take place and the process is going to take place in. My concern as your president and on the board is for those of you that at this time have some living problems and conditions that everybody's not going to come back to the community. I don't want you guys to be sideswiped. In fact, that they're going to build a new Creighton Court and we're all going to live on it. That's not what's going to happen. And sometimes when you speak through the words to people, you got to break it down with my people understand what you're saying. What's going to take place, who's going to be a part of it, okay? All right? What I want the Housing Authority to do, I want a commitment from the mayor and the Housing Authority to commit that we're going to be reasonably satisfied with whatever takes place, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know about the funding, I don't know if it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. But if it do happen, I pray that it be the best for all of us, that we get placed maybe another part of 10th July, maybe there will be some new developments all over and have us here and there, and some will come back on the property. But as the lady said 50 years ago, there was a need for public housing. Poor folks needed somewhere to live. And how they built them at that time to satisfy what was needed. If it didn't work out, it has been a lot of good and positive people who came out of public housing. So don't downplay it. But right now, today, if I had a choice for my grandchildren, they wouldn't be living in public housing. Not as it is today. But I want them to realize that transforming the building does not stop crime. It does not deter from what we live in, because you can build the most beautiful houses in the world, and criminals will still be living in them. Drug dealers, prostitutes, criminals, murder, child molestation, all sorts of people in this world. But what they're trying to do, if it's for us, God will speak on it. And we need to start praying for the right decisions. Get your house in order. Get your finances in order. Get your credit in order. Get yourself in order. To be open for newness. I'm looking forward to the newness, but I want to make sure that none of us fall through the cracks. Do you understand? Now you're going to have to work with me and the council. I got some hard questions for Goolsby and the mayor. I got some questions, I got some concerns, and I'm a little distraught because see, when you talk about taking my house, I feel like it's my house, okay? And see, and everybody up here, we're not talking about where they live. We're talking about where we live, okay? Their houses aren't going anywhere. Your next door neighbor, as you know today, going to be different, but that could be something good. Because public houses have no positive men force on the streets, and our young men have nothing to look up to. The next door neighbor's no model. So yes, we want some new models in our neighborhoods. We want our children to see a different life, taste a new breed of living. But before this is constructed, I want all of us to be in sound mind and good about where we are. If you come back, you're okay. If you don't, you've been placed where housing authority has looked after you guys. The citizens have looked after us and took care of the people the right way. And I'm only going to sign off on it if they get what they're looking for when it's done the right way. With the strength of you guys behind me and supporting us, we're going to be at the table. I'm not going to be at the table. Some other folks will be at the table. And if I'm at the table, it's going to be some stuff at the table. So it's going to be all right. All right? So whatever doubts you have, whatever fears you have, we're in this together. And we can always sue the House Authority and Federal Court to put a stop to this stuff. So, but I ain't going there right now. But anyway, you guys, please get up and say what you feel and ask those hard questions. It's okay. It may not sound, I don't want to ask that, but you're going to ask me tomorrow, and I'm not going to answer you. So you need to ask tonight, okay? Be brave enough. Take a stand. Let's say how you feel, what you would like to see. And you want to tell them, most of all, it's not what you want to see. I want to be a part of that, okay? All right.
Okay, I have a few questions here, but I think something I just want to piggyback on something that was said is that get your house in order. And one of the things we've done as a part of resident services, as a part of family services, and at the Housing Authority is we've always helped our residents get their house in order. She talked about credit repair. We can help you do that. She talked about education opportunities. We can help you do that. And so we've done some wonderful things. We put kids through college, through law school, PhDs. We have GED programs going on. She said, get your house in order. And we, at the Housing Authority, we help you do that. We have every service that you could imagine, and we provide that.
All right, we have a few questions here. And let me give you another phone number for our Family Services Department. Right now, the headquarters is at the Calhoun Family Investment Center, which is in our Gilpin Court community. But we do have staff that come out and meet with you here on site. So you can start with a phone call at 780-4835, or you can stop by the Calhoun Center any day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. The computer lab is there, and we have other programs and services for you, so you don't have to wait. All right. We have a question from the audience. I look forward to change. Will we have homes?
So that's one of the questions that Commissioner Oles talked about a few minutes ago. The one-to-one replacement. First of all, everyone will have a home, okay? Everyone will have somewhere to live. We will preserve affordable housing opportunities in Richmond, okay? So that is something that will not go away. When this area is redeveloped, the number of public housing units, the number of affordable housing units that will be present, the number of market rate units that will be present is unknown right now. Why is it unknown? Because we haven't designed what it's going to look like. They haven't gotten community's input as to what you all would like to see. We don't know what it's going to cost and what's going to be the structure of the deal terms in order to make it work financially. But what I can guarantee you is that the number of units that are here at the Creighton property will not return, okay? I can guarantee you that. Now, as long as you remain, this is what I will guarantee you. As long as you do these couple of things, you remain lease compliant. I need you to remain lease compliant. Lease compliant means that you don't violate anything, any terms of your lease. So therefore, I can guarantee you a right to return. But the second thing that I'm gonna need you to do during this time frame when we are planning and we are engaging the community, I need families to engage in services. I need you all, as Mr. Stuckey and Ms. Valina just stated, to engage with the Calhoun Center, with the Workforce Development Pipeline Initiative. I need you all to get your families in order to move into the new community, either here or a new community somewhere else. So you do those couple of things, and I'm sure my new COO probably has some other things that she want to add to it. But for me, you do those two things, engage in this process, you will have a home. You are going to have a home, a viable home, a future for your family. But what I cannot guarantee you is that it's going to be one-to-one replacement here. The other thing that I'll guarantee you is that we're not going to lose you. I've heard stories about things in the past, dealing with people who were lost and they couldn't find them. We're going to create a system where we can track every resident. If you move, you need to let me know. If you got a Section 8 voucher and you transfer to another housing complex, we need to know. All that information has to get updated continuously, because in Chicago, we had that issue. And we figured out how to address that issue. So I want to make sure that I know all of you all, because redevelopment, it doesn't take a year. It doesn't take 2 years. It doesn't take 3 years. This is a multi-year type of process in order to revitalize and redevelop communities. So this is something that happens overnight. It takes time. I know people move, circumstances change, but we will not lose you. We are going to make sure we have the systems in place to track everyone. So that's all I can say right now. Okay.
Our next question. Redeveloping neighborhoods sounds and looks great, but how can you afford to do all of this and have tenants that will pay very little for rent?
So I wish I knew the answer to that. But you know what? It's possible. Let me tell you why it's possible. It's called mixed income developments. And the reason why it's named that is because it's mixed finance, meaning that we have different areas, different, how do you put it? So for example, let me put it this way. You're at home, somebody has money coming in from the lottery. That's one cash flow. Someone's working, they got money coming in from their job. That's another layer of cash flow that's coming into the house. Someone does volunteer work. Maybe a child does volunteer work and they got money coming in. When you look at your household, you have 3 or 4 different cash flows that might be coming into your house that allows your house to operate, for you to pay your rent, for you to pay your bills, for you to get those new whatever. The same thing when we're talking about mixed income developments. There are different things that we can apply for as far as money streams in order to finance the development. So a resident's rent, even if you're on zero rent, which is basically $50 a month, that, yes, it does impact our bottom line as a housing authority, but how we set up the deal structure and the different types of monies that come into that deal structure will allow us to finance that deal structure and sustain it over multiple years. We're talking about 25 years. These are long deal terms. So the way it's structured, that's why we have to pick an expert, a master developer who knows how to do this. They know how to put it all together. They know how to package it so that we can ensure that your rent doesn't increase from if you're paying minimum rent, and that when we're looking at 30% of your adjusted income, that doesn't have to increase at all per the regulations, okay? So that was kind of like a convoluted way. We're going to figure out where the money's coming from. And along with our partners at HUD, as well as the city and city council, we're going to ensure that we have constant money stream to help with capital investment as well as infrastructure for this community. Right. All right. Okay. Mr. Peters said $5 million to start. That's what I'm talking about.
And this question from the audience leads right into that. They said, please tell us about the budget pre-development costs and resources.
Mr. Chapman is the head of our economic and community development.
Again, good evening. The pre-development budget is a work in progress, and so as we get a master developer or master developers on board, we will flesh out the details. But what we've done in order to ensure that we have some resources to work with is that we put in the budget during this last round of budgeting $5 million, $2.5 million for Whitcomb Court and $2.5 million for Creighton Court to be used for pre-development expenses. So hiring of architects, planners, urban designers, and also to do some infrastructure upgrades. These are both very old properties, 1950s era, so we know that we're going to have to budget for that. So that $5 million does not reflect the total cost, but it is the city's initial investment in what we call pre-development, which captures everything that I just talked about. Does that answer the question? Whoever asked it? Thank you. Questions?
All right, we have more questions from the audience. What kind of help will be there to help the single parents that can't get help?
First of all, I'm going to tell the single parents who are here who can't get help, I'm gonna give you a phone number to call. And I need you to call them first thing in the morning. So tell them Miss Adrian said to call. It's 780-4835. I understand single parents. I know Mr. Stuckey just gave out that number, but I understand the role of single parents. We have services that we can connect parents to and families to today, but they're not being utilized. And what I would say is that if HUD is giving money, if the city's putting money in various programs, and we're not utilizing it here in the community, then we have a problem. We have a problem, and then later, 2 or 3 years later, you're saying that we were not there to help or to assist. We are ready and we are willing to assist today. So I need you all to call that number, because I understand it's hard as a single parent. I'm a single parent. So it's 780-4835. You need daycare services. You need before and after care services. You need people to pick up your children. You got all kinds of stuff that you've got to do. And knowing that our population is primarily single, female-headed households, I understand what the issue is. But I need you to call to get help. I can't go out there and give it to you. You need to call and reach out to these folks so they can get you connected to the right services. There was another question, and it says, will there be a section for grandmothers raising grandchildren and children with disabilities? And what I would say back to that individual is, it definitely could be. What we need is community input as to what you want to see. You can have any type of residential structure that's dedicated to a particular group of individuals, but I need to hear that, the group needs to hear that, the master developer needs to hear that, the working group needs to understand that, so they can figure out how that works into the overall project and the overall solution. So it is a possibility.
If I could just elaborate on the point that Ms. Adrian talked about, the services that are available. When Mr. Mayor spoke earlier, he talked about this dynamic partnership that we have. You are a very valuable partner, and we are very fortunate to have the City of Richmond as a very engaged partner. And tonight we have the Deputy CAO for Human Services, Dr. Carolyn Graham, and she works very closely with us. If you want to give her a round of applause. Her staff works very closely with us. When we talked about the services and the programs and the supports, that's the Department of Social Services is the #1 place that we can begin to get engaged. We have Parks and Recreation represented here tonight, Deborah Morton. Her team is right here. And Dr. Merrifield. There's Dr. Merrifield right next to her. Their team is right here in the Creighton community. But they too are very aware of the need for additional programs and services to support our families. So we are very, very pleased with this partnership, and really we look forward to working with each of them. So another question, what about the people that do not have money to move and the people that get SSI or TANF? What are we going to do?
Well, first of all, if we are moving you because of a redevelopment effort, there are funds that are available through HUD in order to move you. So you do not need to worry about that. We will pay for the move. We will pay for the boxes and everything. We will help you pack. We will have resources available to move you and to unpack you. So that should not be a worry. What I do want to make sure that people understand is that we're not moving anytime soon. So I don't want people to go back into the community like, oh my goodness, they were talking about moving tomorrow or in 2 months. That is not happening anytime soon. When I'm talking about anytime soon, at least a few years. So just understand that there are dollars available as we go through this process that we can get from HUD in order to manage your move expenses. And I do understand that that moving is not an easy experience. I just moved and I'm still unpacking. But I want to ensure that we will, as RRHA and the city, united to take care of you during the move process and making sure that people are set up as they're unpacking.
All right. Another question from the audience this evening. Why was Creighton renovated and now we're set for, it says demolition in the near future, but as Ms. Goolsby said, nothing has been planned at this point and no timeline has been set. But the question was, why was Creighton renovated and now we're looking at this revitalization?
Good question. I am aware that our funds were used to renovate Creighton, and some of those funds were used for capital maintenance initiatives that had to take place in order to ensure that the property will continue to run at the optimum level moving forward. The second piece, though, funds were used to what? Make cosmetic changes to some of the kitchens and some of the bathrooms and some things from that nature, because you had very old refrigerators, very old cabinetry and things of that nature. So we wanted to make sure that even in the midst of everything that's taking place, that we utilize those dollars to make it as comfortable as possible and to ensure that the capital maintenance needs are taken care of for this development. This development is a very old development, and there are just certain things that had to happen behind the walls and plumbing and heating systems that had to take place. We got our funds to do it, and we utilize those funds. Will demolition take place anytime soon? Absolutely not. Those cabinets, those new refrigerators, those new toilets, will we reuse those? Yes, we will. We will be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars, and we will take those items as we go through the demolition process, if that takes place in the next few years, and utilize them at other developments. So it's not a waste, but also we had to make sure that we kept everything in sync from a capital maintenance standpoint.
And these two questions here are very similar. If you could just probably summarize again the process about how the master planning process will involve people coming back into the community.
Okay, so the master planning process is as follows. And what will happen, we're in the process of coming up with a communication schedule to make sure that we come back to Creighton, we go back to Whitcomb, we speak to the entire community to talk about what that overarching development process would look like. But essentially, after selecting the master developer and coming back to the community to understand what are the requirements, what are the things that the community wants to see, going back and forth, guys, that's a long process back and forth with the master developer and the working group. Those type of renderings and things will come back to this group, but as we move through the development process, there are several things that have to take place. One is designing whatever it's going to look like, and also understanding, not when you're talking about the bricks and mortar, but talking about what services do you want in the community? What type of schools do you want in the community? What type of recreation centers do you want in the community? How's that integrated? What type of things do we need to make this a vibrant community? And even though it's a vibrant community currently, because you all been doing the model blocks, we want to continue that in the forefront. The second thing that has to happen is, after all that's on paper, and they say like, this is our wish list, and we come up with what the deal terms are and how we structure it, then you have to go through the process of securing the permits, getting all of that done, demolishing. We have a whole rigorous process through HUD that has to take place. From dispo demolition, we have to go through a relocation process with you all to understand where will people move, what's going to be the first phase. This is over a number of years. It could be off-site design versus right here, and people can move directly on-site as we're moving down certain phases for Creighton. We don't know what that looks like, and we don't know what that development plan looks like, but we know from a relocation standpoint, we will be meeting with you all and having relocation fairs to talk about that. The third thing is that people move, and we make sure that we have individuals situated where they move, but as far as returning back, we will continue to have meetings to talk about what is the criteria when we're talking about returning back. The working group would have met with this community, with other community groups, as well as with the developer to say, this is what we're looking for, this is what it means from returning back, what the time frame looks like, and how you can be involved in that and what that requires. So that's a pretty convoluted way to say this takes multiple years, and that people can return, but sometimes people get comfortable. I'll tell you, in Chicago, we went through this process across a number of our public housing agencies, and what we found out at the end, that about 70% actually stayed where they were once they moved, because they had gotten situated, they didn't want to move, they liked the schools, they liked the neighborhood, that type of thing. But people had the right to return. People had choice. And so what I want to make sure that you all understand is that we're not going to sit here and tell you this is where you can go and you must go there. People have choice. You choose where you want to live and where the affordable housing opportunities are. You have choice. And so that's not something that we're going to push down your throat, but we want to make sure that this is done in concert with everyone.
Mr. Mayor, did you need to offer closing comments at this time?
Well, Adrian has done a good job. She's worked very hard tonight, so she ought to be tired when she gets home. But I think that what we have tried to accomplish tonight is to begin building the kind of trust we're going to need for us to go forward. I want to thank Ms. Oles for her comments. I think they were very heartfelt and very candid. I think she spoke her heart, and I think that while many people did not speak, I think she spoke on your behalf. And we hear you, we're listening to you, and we promise that we're going to stand by you throughout this process, and we look forward to the process, and we believe that it's going to be good for you, going to be good for the city of Richmond. So we thank you so much for coming out. Spread the word. We don't want people to not know what's going on, so when we show up like this, we have the top members of my administration, top members of the Housing Authority administration from the city would come out. It would be good if people would come out to get this information so that they won't be able to say, you know, you didn't tell us, or we didn't think this was going to happen, or we thought that it was just a rumor. This is serious, and so people need to get engaged and involved. So I hope that next meeting we'll have more tenants to come out and be a part of it. But thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you so much for your participation.
One other housekeeping note for you. There was a question about will there be a website. We will be sharing the video from this meeting tonight on the RRHA website, which is rrha.com. You can go there and look at the video. It's almost like our own little CNN, okay? So tune in to the city's channel, which is channel 17. The video from the meeting will be on that channel. It'll be posted on our website as well. You also have your handout, as we mentioned earlier. Please take this with you. Please use it. Please refer to it. Please call us if you have any further questions, 780-4344. And we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming months. Thank you for coming out.